ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Unapologetic Live. I'm your host, Mulvaney. Taylor's here as well. Hello, Taylor.
What's up, guys?
Woo-woo. Excited to be here with you guys today. A most auspicious day. We got some things I wasn't expecting last night, both in my DMs, in my email, all over TikTok, all over Twitter, any platform, you name it. I was getting heat from the political left. And why? Why? Because I made a video, I believe last week. I'm getting my days confused at this point. I'm so busy. But I made a video, a podcast episode last week, reacting to a TikToker by the name of Dylan Mulvaney. You might recognize the name because you watched my podcast or because you are on TikTok and you see this creator. Dylan Mulvaney has about 2.4 million followers on the platform, hundreds of thousands of followers on other platforms as well, and is known and has become famous for making videos about the day in the life as a transgender person. In my podcast, we went through about, I think, day 1 through 30, skipping through certain videos and reacting to what it's like to, quote, become a girl and to transition into this new form of girlhood or womanhood. Of course, I represent the conservative end of things, as I made abundantly clear in that video, and challenged people, gave questions for why I disagree with the sort of transgender ideology, especially the idea of that being good to teach to children. And we talked about that on the show. We criticized some of the ideas that are expressed in this video, but not from the space of not allowing Dylan to do whatever he wants to do with his body. That was the point of the video, and something that I disclaimed at the very beginning of it. Dylan is a grown adult. He can do whatever he wants to do with his body throughout his life, and I will not have a problem with that. I do have a problem with telling people that this is something that is abundantly normal, that it's just what people go through in their daily lives, and that it's something positive specifically for children, that we should promote this idea of gender confusion and it being totally fine to just transition and change to whatever gender it is that you see fit. I think that is inherently harmful for children, and we will get into why. So apparently Dylan was made aware of this podcast, which is totally fine, and I want to extend an invite at the beginning of this episode to Dylan. If you would ever like to be on the podcast or have a conversation on whatever platform you see fit. If you want to do it through TikTok Live, I know that's your biggest platform. We could do it on your TikTok as well, sort of on your home base where you feel more comfortable. We could do it on my show here on YouTube or Facebook or an Instagram Live. I would love to have a discussion with you to go through some of the points I made on that episode, because personally, I feel as though I was extremely respectful in both disclaiming things at the outset of the episode and also going through my way of thinking as it pertains to transgenderism and gender ideology, and expressing my concerns and asking everybody else, even those who disagree with me, though that's not popular these days to talk to people who disagree with you, but asking those who disagree with me to also state their claims and give their points in response to the things that I was saying. I think that's a pretty reasonable thing to say. At no point during that episode did I mention anything hateful, incite violence in any way, or ask the followers of my podcast to send hate, to go to Dylan's page, or to interact with it in any way, shape, or form. And we'll talk about the idea of hate speech, the idea of violent speech, and whether or not, as a creator with a big platform, whatever that means, you are responsible for what your followers do. We will have that discussion because it seems to be something that comes up not only in Dylan's video and analysis of this whole podcast episode, but in also the reaction that I'm getting from Dylan's followers who are now on my page, some with respectful and rational ideas, others with baseless accusations and very violent death threats. You can look at those if you want to go to my Instagram and look at my story. There are some pretty obscene things that have been sent to me through DMs, through my email, on all of my social media pages, and we'll talk about whether or not, as a creator, you are responsible for what your followers do. I think you can guess what my opinion is on something like that. But let's get into this, because I did get a response, or at least Dylan did post, day 45 of Girlhood, the haters. It's a long one, trigger warning, transphobia. Transphobia. Let's take a look.
Day 45 of being a girl, and we are talking about the haters. I did not want to make this video, but I feel like there's maybe some good lessons to be learned. I'm hopefully not going to get emotional, but this is still very fresh. And you all know I like to keep my content really positive, but sometimes that's not what life gives us, and we got to roll with it. It has been brought to my attention that I was on a podcast last week without my knowledge. A pretty successful woman podcaster did an entire hour-long episode on my videos in a very negative light. I'm not going to tell.
Negative meaning I don't agree with the ideology that you are claiming to uphold and saying is positive. Okay, if we want to call that negative, sure. It is an opposing, dissident opinion for what you represent. Sure. Negative. Let's continue.
I'm going to tell you who it is or where to find it because it's not productive to any of us.
And the idea of a podcast that questions your ideology not being productive is a really interesting thing. Why is it unproductive to have these conversations with people who disagree with you? Again, something that I made abundantly clear at the outset of the episode. If you disagree with me, please put it in the comments. Please actively be in the chat so that we can talk about these things and work through them. Why is that not productive? And that seems to be something that leftism seems to elevate, that the idea that it is unproductive to talk to people or talk about people or even their ideas that disagree with your opinions and your view of the world. Why is that unproductive?
I'm not going to listen to the episode because I'm fragile and I'm literally in the beginnings of my transition. And the last thing I need to do is hear someone talk specifically about me in a terrible way. But I did watch the Sizzle video that is about 3 minutes long and her
Okay. The idea of making a video about something in response to my podcast, a podcast that you openly admit you did not watch. This was an hour-long episode, and we talk about the time frame as if it being an hour long means it's a even bigger attack because it was an hour-long podcast rather than a 30-minute one. I think that matters not. The reason it was an hour is because we went through these videos, we dissected them, we talked about the ideas, we expressed our questions surrounding this ideology. For you to have such a visceral reaction to something that you did not watch is very concerning, and I think it does speak to that fragility. Why is there such fragility around these subject matters when in daily life, Dylan is very open about being trans and having this lifestyle and has, again, over 2 million followers on these platforms. Doesn't seem like something that is very fragile, at least in other cases, but when it is subject to criticism and put under a microscope, it crumbles in this way. And that's something that we should talk about, and not from a position of hate, not from a position of disdain or transphobia, which is a word I just completely disagree with, from an actual question standpoint of why such a visceral reaction to someone respectfully questioning your ideology.
The main overall point that she was trying to make concerning me, Dylan, was that why can't Dylan just be a feminine man? And why can't some women be masculine women? Why do we have to allow trans people to exist? And the second she said that, I knew that she's never had to question her gender before. Yes, feminine men do exist, and I applaud them. Hello, feminine men. I'm proud of you for being you, but I'm not a feminine man. That's not.
Okay. So I expressed in this video, Dylan can be whatever Dylan wants to be and present to the world however Dylan wants to present to the world. However, what you don't get to do is turn around and tell other people, you must affirm it. You must alter what is your reality for my idea of what the world is. Dylan, you can do whatever you want. People who are trans can do whatever they want. I expect the same grace in return, that I can do whatever I want with my life and I can live in the reality as I have lived my entire life. But suddenly we have this new phenomenon, and people will say it's not new, but this complete epidemic of transgenderism and gender theory is relatively new to our society. And you're perfectly fine to live in that. Present yourself however you want. Go through the surgeries, wear makeup, wear feminine clothes, do feminine hair, do whatever it is you like to do with your adult body. Very important point there, adult body. However, you don't get to tell me and compel my speech for what I call you, what is normal and what is reality. And I struggle to come to a conclusion on how one can truly believe they are a woman. Now, gender dysphoria, of course, exists. We've seen it time and time again. It is a true affliction that people have. And I think it's something that we do need to talk about and discuss. But right now, what we're doing is blindly affirming this affliction rather than having a detailed discussion about what treatment has the best outcomes, because clearly the treatment that we are subjecting people to now does not have the best outcomes. So my question, another question here, what makes a woman, or in Dylan's case, a girl, because Dylan does not like to call himself a woman, he likes to call himself a girl. What makes a girl? What makes you a girl? Because it's not the gender roles and the way that you present yourself that makes you a girl. It's not the DNA that makes you a girl. Is it a feeling that makes you a girl? Or is it this affliction that makes you think that you are a girl? Just a question that is posited. And anybody who's a leftist or a part of the transgender community, please feel free to answer that in the comments.
Not who I am. And to suggest that that is how I should live the rest of my life would mean a lifetime of unhappiness for me. And in that same video,
I have to keep pausing. I apologize. So I'm not suggesting that that is the way that you live your life. I am suggesting that you allow other people to live in reality as they see fit. Again, you can do whatever you want to do with your body. You don't get to turn around and tell other people that they must affirm you. And it is very jarring that you get so emotional when somebody fails to affirm you. And it seems as though you need outer validation in order to validate who you think you are as a being. And that's not something that I think is good or represents an ideology that is particularly successful or leads to health and wellness in any way, shape, or form. So again, you can do whatever you want to do with your body. You just don't get to tell me how I'm meant to view the world and what I'm meant to say.
she talks about how I'm showing and doing things that should not be seen by the public. And the only thing I can come up with is that I've worn a bikini or I did a Trader Joe's haul. I haven't even cursed in my videos yet. She says she doesn't wish me any ill will, which feels very passive aggressive, because when you have a platform that large, just because you aren't wishing me ill will, a lot of your followers are. And that's when I messed up and I read the comments. Oh!
Pause. Okay. Let's talk about this idea of violent speech or what your followers do or having a massive platform. First, let's state the facts. Dylan has 2.4 million followers on TikTok. 2.4 million followers on TikTok. So who has a larger platform? Dylan has the larger platform. And after Dylan made this video, I've received death threat after death threat after death threat after hate comment after hate comment. Again, those are on my Instagram. You can go and check them out. So Dylan's followers decided that it was conducive to conversation, I guess, to go and send me death threats. Does that make Dylan responsible? No. In that same light, in that same vein, does it make me responsible for things that my followers do? No. You as an individual are only responsible for your words and your actions. And if other people decide to do things that you did not ask them to do or insinuate that they should do, that's on them. Individuals are responsible for themselves and nobody else. I am not responsible for what people who follow me on my platform do. If I say I hate McDonald's and somebody goes and sets a McDonald's on fire, I'm not responsible for that. The same can be said for people who send hate comments. And that's why I'm not blaming Dylan for the hate comments and the death threats that I've received, because it's not rational. Let's continue.
And I had felt like this past month, I had been surrounded in a bubble of love. And in a moment, it just shattered. Because it wasn't just hundreds of transphobic comments, it was hundreds of comments about me personally, with these people using my name. I spent so many years of my life feeling like an alien, feeling wrong, feeling guilt, and I'm not gonna go back there. I'm not gonna let those people do that to me. I'm gonna try my best to just unread it and to let it go and keep focusing on the people who do want to listen to me. I'm less concerned about those people, and I'm more interested in speaking to the people that really are on the fence about transness or are interested in my story. But those people in the comments, they've got a long way to go before they're on the Dylan train. If all those people in the comments can watch my videos, see me, and truly believe that I'm evil, that I am mentally ill, that I'm a predator.
And let's go ahead and disclaim, I do not think that Dylan is evil or a predator. If we want to talk about mental health in relation to this, I don't think this video paints a particularly pretty picture of mental health. And I don't think feeling so distanced from the sex that you were born with as to change your gender and present differently speaks very kindly to the mental health situation you're in. I don't think the outcomes of transgender people, even those who undergo sex reassignment surgery and who are accepted by their community and their family when it comes to suicide, I don't think those outcomes paint a particularly pretty picture of mental health or mental illness. So those are things that we need to talk about. We don't need to jump into the vein of calling people evil or predators unless we have evidence to suggest that. So I want to set those two words aside and say I by no means think that Dylan represents anybody in that camp or in that set of ideas. Mental illness, though, and mental health is something that we should be talking about related to body dysphoria and gender dysphoria, because it was characterized as a mental illness until this progressive campaign sort of moved and changed it. And it's gone as far as to be changed in the DSM-5, which is questionable, and doctors question it, but those doctors get silenced and ousted from the community. So we're not creating a climate that allows us to have these conversations, which is why I would love if Dylan would come on the podcast, or we could do a TikTok live together to talk through these things and have a discussion about it. And I will treat Dylan with the utmost respect, as I believe I have done in the episode that I did and in the subsequent videos where we talk about these things. So I will continue to do that, and I will continue to push to have these conversations. I wish somebody would step up to the table and meet me there to have those conversations.
Then there's something wrong with them, because that is not what I am. It's almost as if all of those people, including that podcast host, are against people being happy. It is as if they want to strip the happiness away from me. I won't let them do that. They can't. And I hate that those negative people could be watching this video right now and finding joy in my hurt. Trans people, we're just trying to be happy. We're just trying to get by. This is scary enough. What goes through your mind when you leave an evil comment like that to anyone else that is dealing with hate or bullying? I wish I could take the hurt away. I really do. But that's what those people are. They're bullies. I know for certain is that my life will be so much more joyous and full of love and laughter and richness and all of these things than theirs ever will be. Can't believe I just made a crying video. I'm so sorry.
An interesting idea that just because somebody disagrees with your set of ideology and how you view things like gender and sex, which have represented traditional values thus far, up until thus far, that they will never experience joy or happiness or love in the way that you experience it. And that's where we've gotten as a society and a culture that is very concerning, that because somebody disagrees with you politically, you think they stand on moral ground that is somehow thinner than yours, and that they can actually represent an evil entity that is tied to who they are as a being, and that they are somehow toxic and not as worthy of love or not going to experience love in the same way that you do. We're actually just all human beings who, through our experiences and who, through what we've seen and what we've learned, have come to different conclusions. And I used to be in this camp of people. You guys know that if you watch the program regularly, although I imagine there are some new people watching today. Hello, I used to be a former leftist. I used to support gender ideology. I would have been 4 years ago at the front line of some of these protests saying this is what we need to be teaching in schools. This is what children need to be hearing. These are the people that we need to support, and we should blindly affirm them because that is what is good for them. Upon doing research and looking into this and actually looking into the outcomes for transgender people and how it affects society and culture as a whole, I have gotten to the opposite opinion. And I've done so respectfully. And when I see a video like this of somebody crying, not only about hate, but about their position and how scary it is to be living this lifestyle, it begs the question, if this lifestyle is so scary and something that makes you so fragile as a human being, why is it that you have dedicated your TikTok career to promoting it to people, and people who you know are impressionable and young and view you as an influence? if you are so fragile and it is so scary, and in this next video that we will show in a minute, Dylan asks, why was I born this way? And I ask God or whoever is above, why was I born this way? If these are true questions that you are asking yourself and having to come to terms with, how can you promote this lifestyle to other people? Another genuine question that I would love for Dylan to come on the program and talk to me about, because I'm not understanding. So I think from this video, we've concluded, A, I was not hateful in my podcast whatsoever. Also, what you do as a creator is what you do as an individual. And what your followers do is what they do as individuals. It has nothing to do with you unless you directly ask them to go and send hate to somebody, threaten somebody, or bully somebody. I extend that respect and that compassion to myself, and I extend that to Dylan as an individual as well. So, and we have some questions that I've stated and left behind for the people who disagree with me. And if Taylor sees anything in the comments that constitutes an argument, we will talk about that as well. Now, I am going to say goodbye to my friends watching on the PragerU channels, and we are going to be on Epinobi on YouTube. We'll be still on Rumble. We'll be on Getter. We will be on PragerU's Facebook and my Facebook as well. But we are saying goodbye to PragerU YouTube, and we're going to watch Dylan's second video where I was mentioned and respond to that as well. So here is day 45, part 2.
Day 45 continued, or I suppose part 2. I wrote something and I would like to read it to you. Okay. I've soaked in the bathtub for over 2 hours now, most of the while staring at the ceiling, extending my vision upward to some higher power, God, the universe, whomever or whatever created me. And I ask, why me? With no reply. I ask, why am I trans? No reply. I ask, why now? Nothing. And then I add, when I am so fragile. And some voice, whether it is my own conscience or a higher power